Chris.
Hey.
See how you?
Yeah. This is I2RS, right?
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing there?
That is precision.
What? Sue, right? Maybe she's not feeling well. I saw her earlier this week.
I think it's right now.
It's real tough for you, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's real tough for you. Long slog.
It's a bit weird though, actually. I feel like I'm right.
Yeah.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
It's funny running into you because immediately after giving some comments, I need to run to slides. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Did you see the update? Yeah, I kind of I think I gave you it.
Yeah, I've not read it, but I sort of.
Yeah, right in front
I
of
did the
them.
math.
Because
Yeah.
everyone's
Like
standing in
math
the
better.
standing in the pink square, so they can see the video.
I think we wanted to raise it.
Never mind.
I'm not sure, so I think it's probably okay.
No, of course not.
We
Every
do.
place is different.
It's just interesting to think we're deleting something from.
Well, how do other people do that know?
There's no sound from the laptop, yeah.
So maybe I'm breaking news.
Well, I don't know.
No, it's just that
Some people might
you need to open the Yanks sound, but if you're not playing the videos, then you
I
don't
don't like that because I like the
Yeah, you
like,
should
if I
check
have
with
it
the
in a
secretary
list.
about
okay. Oh,
Because
More
there's a
machine
number of
parts.
different
You know,
meetings.
you know, so it's more
I
like
see. Okay.
I don't think there's going to be any sound. You don't think there's
Okay.
any
it's either string or hiding it from the model.
Test 1 2.
You're putting a semantic.
Thank you so much.
Can't be expressed.
Hi, welcome to IETF 101. Welcome to I2RS. You might have noticed that I'm not actually Sue. Unfortunately, she's sick, and Russ is still on the way from the airport, so you get my shining countenance. Don't look so puzzled, Chris. Hi.
I've been so confused. I'm like, where's Holly up there? Where's Sue? I saw her.
She's
Not feeling well.
she's noticeably sick. So.
Oh, no.
Let's go through. So the first thing is, of course, the agenda bashing and RFCs. I'm going to talk to you about the current status. But I also want to make sure that everyone knows who Martin is because he is going to be the responsible AD for I2RS after Wednesday. Don't forget to smile. And talk about what's going on with the drafts that are in working group last call and the transfer of work to RTGWG and then party time. Did you all bring hats? All right. Well, if you didn't bring hats, that's okay. We'll get on with it. So let's see. We've gotten a number of documents published from the I2RS working group. Most recently, the topology and L3 topology model. We had the architecture done a while ago, the traceability framework, publication subscription work, which we all know have turned into a good amount of work over in NetConf. There was a serious drive for that, and now we see the impact of that happening in telemetry. Security requirements, the ephemeral state, again, where NetMod has done the NMDA, which is also now an RFC, so that we are able to have ephemeral state and use Yang models for basically the APIs that were envisioned for I2RS. We still have 3 documents that are in working group last call. There's the RIB data model, the RIB information model, and the Yang DC fabric network. The RIB data model and RIB information model are familiar to you all because we've had them in the working group for a very long time. And they're really important documents coming from the working group. I'm extremely excited to see them go forward. I did an AD review. They're all good. And they're in IETF last call. They're in a bit of a prolonged IETF last call because we had a large number of documents in IETF last call. And so some of them had to stretch out. What that does mean is Martin is going to be being the responsible AD for I2RS. And the plan is to get these 3 documents through. And then the working group is going to be closed because, we've gotten the work done, which is awesome. There is one document, which is the L2 network topology draft, where I'd like to see some discussion on that document if possible. There's a working group last call confirmation happening on the mailing list right now. And it's, the document's been dormant for a while, but that was basically because it was done and waiting on the topology and L3 topology ones. I haven't done a review of it. Martin, it's going to be up to Martin to do the AD review of it and decide whether it's going to be ready to go from this working group or whether it needs to move over to RTGWG. So does anyone want to talk about the L2 topology one? Oh yeah, go for it, Chris. Awesome. Thank you.
Hi. So I'm the Yang Doctor reviewer of this document. It was requested to be done by IETF. I did not get it done. Christian Hops, by the way. There are some issues that the TLDR version of my review is, it defines features like, I can't think of any off the top of my head that it doesn't use, PBB, right? And I don't know if it should be defining features that it literally doesn't reference. The other thing is the end caps. It defines end caps like ATM that it doesn't add any attributes for. And I don't know exactly what the right thing to do here is, but I suspect it's to leave that end cap to be defined by somebody who actually is understanding the technology and wants to put the attributes in. So a few things like that. I think it's going to have to rev though. That was my main comment, was I don't think it's ready to go completely final. So I guess it would follow with Martin or move to a different working group.
Right. So I had intended to close I2RS this meeting, but because of the documents that are not through, that's not happening. And as I said, Martin's going to wait and close the working group when the documents are done, which should be well before next IETF. For the L2 topology model, I will just have to see how, if the responses are quick to your comments or if it needs to move to RTGWG for discussion. Hey, Alex. So does anyone else have any comments on the L2 network topology? Okay, so let's see. One other document that was being started but hadn't progressed fully is the ephemeral data store model. And the ephemeral data store model is going to go to RTGWG to get finished. We'd made a lot of progress on that in the last couple IETF cycles, which is really great, but it's just not quite done yet. So we're going to have that happen in RTGWG. And the I2RS security environment requirements draft has been sitting for a while. It did go through working group last call, but it's one of those documents that was really useful to sort of pull things together and be clear, but we don't see it as having longevity in needing archival, keeping. So it's not going to be published. So before we go to celebration time, let's be sober for a few minutes. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
So I don't know if it's appropriate. I don't know how far and widespread the topology models are yet. At DT, I think we have a use for them. Specifically, we've been talking a lot lately about the being identify L3 links when we have like a fiber failure, right? So having the way that it's organized is really well. The models could do with some. I don't understand why like types are containers. Unfortunately, I think the ship sailed, right? Because it's an RFC.
They are RFCs. We do business.
Yeah. And like the notifications in L2 are really generic. Like, why aren't they just generic notifications that when they identify an L2 network, it's an L2 notification? But I don't know if there's any room for any cleanup or re-revving. Probably not, since you're going to close this group down.
So there is a lot of work, as you strangely enough well know, in RTGWG on Yang models. And so my expectation is that there is absolutely room for rework if it's needed, particularly since, deployment and, implementation experience is really excellent. Yeah. So I think that it could happen in RTGWG if it makes sense. I'd encourage you, of course, to talk to the authors of the RFCs and the authors for the L2 topology. Since the L2 topology model is not as far along, I think there is the opportunity there for some rework based on your experience.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, right? Since we haven't pushed L2 through yet, maybe we move the notifications to a BIS of the generic, but I don't know, because L3 also got published, so now it has specific notifications. Okay. Yeah, I think they're perfectly fine for what we need to use them for. But yeah, as I try to use them more directly, maybe we'll find a few things.
Sure. That sounds great. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts, considerations? So, I mean, thank you all. Thank you all for your hard work. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for getting this stuff done. I know the working group has gone through some challenging times to get the work done. And I think that we've made the impact that was anticipated in terms of the technologies that were necessary to support I2RS and also just in terms of changing how people think about Yang models, what we can do with them, and having them not just be for configuration. Obviously, the ability to go forward and use the same kind of models with different protocols as more of an API or interface is now there, that we've got the functionality of ephemeral data stores is going to go off to RTGWG, but the understanding of how that works in NetMod and with Yang is there. The notifications are there. We've made a lot of progress over the last few years. And so I just really want to say thank you. And now you'll be shocked to hear it's time to celebrate. So I hope you all had breakfast. So Martin, if you want to open it up, we can pass them out. I've got more as well.
Do you have the opportunity to have chocolate for?
Yes.
And the great thing is that there are more chocolate balls than people in the room.
Oh, I have more. I, in fact, have extra. Oh, yeah. So we can do both sides at the same time. Of course. I'll just pass that out. And
Yeah.
oh, blue sheets, crud. Blue sheets. Please do fill out the blue sheets. Yes. Give people more talent tonight. There you go. Thank you. I didn't crack foil on them. All right.
It is hard to get that way.
So. Cool.
There we go.
So I'd ask you all to, continue to help with, as Martin has and deals with comments, particularly the authors for the documents that are in last call. This is Martin. He's going to be the routing AD, of course, as of Thursday, and not me anymore. And then, please do work with him to get those documents done because they really matter.
Yeah, the one which is in last call, the layer 2 topology one, really, if you could take a look at it, send your comments. If you don't have technical comments, at least support or comment on the progression of this document, because it's really important, especially at this stage of the working group, to have a clear situation on how to progress it or not.
Yep. And really, that's it. So you can all start milling around and talking to each other.
Milling around.
Oh, all right, fine. If you've been an author of one of the documents, one of the RFCs, could you stand up? And if you've been a chair and sorry, Jeff. Yeah. I know. And you know what? I think that's a good thing. If you've worked on, and if you've reviewed a document and provided good feedback, and thank you all very much, because the work is it's really awesome. Thank you. Cool. All right, and that's a wrap. Keep eating chocolate.
Okay. I guess I'll go write my slides now.
No.
Oh.
You should. Yes.
No, I don't think you need to be there. I'm having a schema resolution meeting.
Well, I've so Luke CC'd me on it.
Oh, did he? So you're gonna come?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't subject that to anybody. But
Yeah, no, that was.
Yeah, they have lots of.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was all. But, I mean, you did comment on it. You did make some comments on it. Yeah. You were basically telling me, oh, this thing is so clean and pretty. You just have to wait. It's not very long. You don't have to wait very long.
I think another one.
Which one? Said that. Anyway,